Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of Let's Talk Footy featuring Toronto High Park Football Club. I'm your host Shaheen, and today we have our General Manager Jason Massie, Female Grassroots Coordinator Mallory MacDonald, and we have a very special guest in Nancy Spotton, who's a master performance coach, who's gonna help us dissect the topic of team development in today's podcast. So sit back and enjoy the show. Welcome to the Let's Talk Footy podcast. It's my pleasure to have everyone. I would like Jason to start us off and tell us about the idea behind today's podcast and the strategic planning of the club for the next couple of years and how it brings us Nancy to the podcast as well as Mallory.
Thanks, Shaheen. Well, you put me on the spot straight away, so I guess I'll get down to it.
The best.
As you know, Shaheen, we've together the team and the board as well have been working on formalizing our strategic plan. We've always had one, but we haven't always shared it with the membership, and that's basically what we're planning to do over the next few weeks. And one of the strategic objectives that we're focusing on is team development and development of teams within our club. And what that means for us, you might think as a football person straight away, you think about, the team, like you're going to have great teams at your club. But it's actually quite the opposite. It's like we're looking for teams of people. So teams of coaches, teams of educators, teams of parents, teams of administrators, teams of referees. So that's what we're focusing on. And I did a little bit of research and Eddie Keogh from the board also, and we stumbled across Nancy, and we were like, she looks like a person that could really take us to the next level. So we reached out, and Nancy said yes, thankfully, and here we are. So Nancy's been connecting with a number of people. So I guess I'll turn it over to Nancy, and you can tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
Let's have a conversation about team. It is so interesting, and what I love in soccer is how consistently every piece of feedback with the 300 people that I've worked with in the past year in our soccer community, that they all say one thing that makes soccer awesome, and that is about team. And so how Jason and you guys are focusing on specifically on team development, I would ask two questions. One is about trust. How do you build trust in teams? How do you guys do it? Because that's part of the whole team development element. And the second thing that I love is I'm going to say languages. I say languages in this. This week with multiple soccer coaches and people within your community and within other communities in soccer in Ontario, I've talked about the different languages that exist in soccer. So match officials have a language, coaches have a language, athletes have a language, parents have a language, administrators have a language, and board have a language. So there's literally like 5 different languages. And I say languages intentionally, and I'll articulate on that before I come back to trust. And I want Mallory to answer me on the trust. Is in the languages piece, and it ties to trust, that match officials traditionally are very ardent rule followers. They're like, okay, everybody, get on the pitch. We've got to get on the pitch. We have to. Coaches are on the opposite end of that scale, a little bit more of a risk taker. Oh, yeah, impulsive behavior versus linear behavior. So I'm saying that very different communication style. As an example of extremes, now I come back to trust, and we'll go to Mallory, but it's really about learning the language of the other person, helping. It's communication is about connection. How do you communicate with the intent of building trust? And Mallory's a great example because Mallory's communication strengths are incredible. Very high in support and affection. Lead with her heart. She's passionate and loyal. And that's part of the way that you build trust. So how do you see other people building trust in your team, in your club, in your area?
Thanks, Nancy, for saying all that sweet things about me. You basically put it exactly the way that I would say it, to be completely honest. Building trust in a team perspective is all about connection for me. Personally, in my opinion, that's kind of what I go for. So connection can mean a bunch of different things. So it can be connecting in a personal level or connecting in a business perspective. So I really like how you touched on the different communication styles, and I'll add to like also personalities. So it's kind of getting down to, it's not down, but necessarily to somebody's level, and actually just looking at how we can properly connect with different personalities and different communication styles to really connect and kind of move forward with whatever you're doing. So I think that really builds trust overall. And I think that would probably be the biggest thing, is just overall connection.
I'm going to come to you, Shaheen. I want you to share with us, because you're a coach, you've been an athlete, you're a member of this team. How do you communicate with the intent to connect with other people? Because you're very good at, just let me frame this out actually. 55% of communication is body language. 38% of communication is tone, and 7% are words. And what I see you do really well, Shaheen, you lean in, you smile, your eyes smile. These are things that help other people connect to you. So what have you done in the past that has enabled you to connect with other people?
It's very interesting. The things that you just touched on, I can very directly relate to. Like as a coach, the body language you're talking about, when players, for example, are on the field and they look over their shoulder and they see the coach, whatever, if my body language is positive, then the player is going to respond positively to that. Whereas if I have a very negative body language, or if I'm angry about something, or if I'm upset about something, and I show that through my body language or verbally, then the players are also going to negatively respond to that. Another thing that was interesting that you mentioned was the fact that we have to understand each other's language. So as a coach, the way I talk to my players, depending on what age they are, I have to speak within their language in order to be able to relate to them, so that they can relate to me, so that we can also form a bond and form a trust. So I think it's very relatable to me. It's very relatable to my everyday life, and I'm glad you brought it up, actually.
You are a very, very good communicator. You're articulate, and you don't fill space with ahs and ums. So which means you're low in distractibilities and high in focus. That's good. Jason is excellent at communicating, and he communicates differently. So let me contextualize that good communicators, great communicators, learn and master 4 things. They ask good open-ended questions. They share themselves. They let people in. They listen with the objective of hearing, and they give good feedback. So Mallory, what do you see in Jason of those 4 that he does really well?
He gives great feedback. And I've connected with Jason kind of outside coaching. Like kind of when I started, he was coaching with me. And what I really, really liked about that is that I just connected with him on like a coach level, and I really got to know Jason. And I got to know Jason for really kind of, I think, who he is. And I loved spending time with him and him mentoring me. He made me into a fantastic coach, and has really shared a lot of knowledge. And I honestly wouldn't be here right now in the position that I am without Jason, and actually Shaheen too. But there's a lot of other people that have contributed to that, but specifically to Jason. That's really what I appreciate about him.
Okay, so look at Jason's mouth when you were giving him a compliment. It was all like twitchy. And then you give him a compliment, he goes like this to me, this is what he does to me. Oh, Nancy.
Yeah, and look how red he is. Do you need to open a window, Jason?
One of the things that you do well, Jason, is that you listen with the intent of hearing, not with the intent of responding. See, his little things where he's taking a cup so he can hide his lips because he's getting uncomfortable with all this love. My point is this. With Shaheen, who's high in support and affection, or Mallory that's high in support and affection, that is the purpose of building trust in teams. Communicate to connect, what Mallory said. Communicate with the intent to connect. That I am different from Mallory, who's different from Jason, who's different from Shaheen, and we all have different and unique identities or unique personal styles. And Jason's strength is not my strength. But when you build teams where you recognize that and you add them together, you get magic. It's magic. And that's where so often I will hire somebody who looks like or sounds like me. So when you guys talk about diversity and inclusion, it's not just about whether or not you are from a different area in the world. It is about how you think. And Jason's strength is that he listens with the intent of hearing, which makes people on his team feel valued. Mallory's strength is that she gives great positive feedback to Jason in this enthusiastic, sunshiny way, which isn't Jason's way, and it makes him feel good, even though he feels uncomfortable. So it's just about learning about, what Shaheen said. It's about personalization. What Shaheen is doing is he's learning every single kid's name, and he is ultimately connecting with each individual kid from a personal perspective. How do you connect, Jason? Sorry, Shaheen. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. I just had a question, Nancy, for you. So, like each one of us here on this call are some sort of leaders in what we do. So, would you say, as a leader, is it more important to be ourselves and to communicate the way we communicate, or should we, depending on who we are interacting with, should we try to adapt and communicate the way that the person that we're trying to communicate to communicates? Do you understand what I'm saying?
It is a good question. I get it. I understand it. I hear it. I would answer it this way. And I said this to a CEO that I'm coaching, that as you grow in your leadership role, if you have one person and you have 5 people leading, and then you have 10 people leading, then you have 20 people leading, it is your responsibility and your opportunity to learn how to communicate with the intent to connect. So it's almost like you have to learn a whole bunch of different languages. Jason has to learn the language of love, and the language of Mallory, and the language of Shaheen, and the language of Adrian, and the language of the board. His opportunity is to understand the different languages. And it's about a modification, because it's not about being inauthentic. Because you have to live with an authenticity to your biogenic self. You are happy, you are intelligent, you are curious. The way you communicate, Shaheen, you are high in detail, so you have high expectations of yourself. Therefore, you have high expectations of other people. It is about being authentic to you and personalizing your interactions, because of one thing. The objective of communication is to connect. And if you're speaking at people, then you're not connecting. If you're speaking with people, being inclusive, then you are connecting. The other strength of Jason is that he is somebody who, when he speaks, he always adds value to the conversation. And as a leader, back to your question, Shaheen, it is my responsibility to be quiet so that he can speak. Because that's how teams connect. So Jason, where's your insight in this area of team connection and communication?
Big question. And I think the main thing that is kind of, I guess, an aha moment, or the penny drop with me, is that everybody has different communication styles, and just because you say something in a way that you think it's gotten through, it doesn't always get through, and most of the times it won't get through. And so one of your favorite words, Nancy, is intentional. So we have to be intentional when we're connecting with people, and we have to explain why, and we have to be formal about it. And what tends to happen is people go, oh, formalize. Oh, I don't want to meet every week. Like, what's this? Like, I've not got time for this. And, you know, that was my response to you at the start. And you were like, that's rubbish. Get that out of your mind. Like, and what we do now at our club is we just connect. Like, we take the time to meet with each other. And it's powerful, and it seems so simple, but it is really simple. Like, Mallory meets with me for half an hour a week. She also meets with Adrian, and I'm sure she meets with multiple other people that you know, help her to do her job. Shaheen the same. He's meeting with Eden. He's meeting with a number of people, and then we all meet on a Tuesday. And it's funny because, you know, COVID has not been great, but what it's taught us, I think, is that we need to set aside time, no distractions, where we're focused on each other and what we're trying to achieve. How is that person doing that week? And it's not about asking the question, oh, how are you? Right? That's a classic question that we like to ask. And to me, it's a waste of time. I'm like, what have you been up to? And again, one of your specials is, what wins have you had this week? What positives have you seen? And that one question, it just changes the mindset of the people that you're connecting with. And then it's infectious, and it just takes control. And right now we're seeing that with our team at our club.
You know, Shaheen, that gets back to what Jason talks about, being strategically intentional about connecting with people and doing the 3 things or the 4 things that I'm talking about. Ask, listen, share. Ask open-ended questions, share let people in, and listen with the intent of hearing. And then feedback. You know, how Mallory just gave Jason feedback, how I gave you feedback. That's an example of how teams connect. It really isn't rocket science. It is simple. And so many people way overcomplicate it. And the second thing I always see in soccer, Shaheen, is people who are very high and physically competitive will be high in control and high in confidence, which I just changed my body language intentionally. You know, I'll pull my shoulders back, and I'll stick my chest down, and I'll put my shoulders up, and I'll talk like this, and like they'll walk onto the field like this, and you kind of go, really? Just they protect. It's part of the journey of breaking down that barrier and letting people in, because the greatest leaders do this. Shaheen, they do this. They do one thing. They extend trust first. They don't extend competence first. They extend trust first. So back to your body language, that when they walk onto the field and they have this gigantic barrier because they're protecting themselves, then those kids think it's okay to be like that. And if you want your teams to win, your teams have to trust. How do you get them to trust? Ask, listen, share. Really, just break. I don't care. Talk about whether or not you like pizza or tacos, but talk about something. And how do you connect, or how do you share? You ask questions to connect. It's really that simple.
I agree. I think adding to what you're saying and also to what Jason mentioned, I think one of the things that I've learned during this entire COVID time is that getting together with people, sharing, but also listening, it makes people feel that you care about them, that you want to hear about them, what they have to say, and really just listening to what they have to say, because you can pick up a lot about how they're doing or what they have to add, and you learn and grow a lot from it. So I think that's one of the positives that I've taken from a difficult time like this. So
I would eliminate "I think" from your vocabulary, because really, you know, that's one of the things that you've taken. And I'm going to come back to Mallory for a second, because this is something you do very well, Mallory, that there are 3 roles of a leader: to make people feel valued. And that's why I'm coming to Mallory. The second thing is to get your job done, to help them get their job done, feel valued, learn stuff, and get your job done. And as a leader, are you doing that? You can ask each one of the kids on your team, do I make you feel valued? You can ask yourself, you can tell whether the answer is yes or no. If the answer is no, I don't make you feel valued, then you're missing an opportunity to communicate with the intent to connect. So Mallory, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask you a question specifically about kids that are hard to get to know. Because what I see, and I'm going to contextualize this comment, that there used to be extroverts large amount of extroverts and a smaller amount of introverts. But as I see the world changing, that people are significantly higher in introversion than they were in the past. So that's a non-scientific view, but that's what I've seen. So how do you, Mallory, connect with everybody? Because you not only have a wonderful, warm connection style, and you also are good at being intentional about leveraging your high analytical to connect with people. So how do you connect with the teams that you coach or the athletes that you coach?
Well, I firstly try to figure out kind of what their interests are typically. And then overall, like as a leader or as a coach, I try to be just overly genuine. Genuine is a very broad word whenever you look at it. But to make people feel valued, I feel that you have to be vulnerable in a controlled, intentional sense, as well as a genuine person. And then past that, I feel that honestly, it's just caring about them. It's just actually genuine care. So it's not just like, oh, hey, how's it going? It's like, oh, how was school today? What did you do? Let me see your keep ups. Oh, that's so great. And then they love to share things and to actually really listen to them and actually be excited about what they're excited about. It makes me excited thinking about it because I love, I miss the players, obviously. But that's how I kind of connect, is being vulnerable, genuine, and actually just really caring about what matters to them.
I like how she, Mallory even changed her body language when she said, I generally care. She like leans in and her head tilts and she's big smile. It's good. So let's talk about the view of your future, Jason. That look at how you have been able to connect this team. And one of your strengths is, and I'm not sure you share this enough, but your ability to see strategically and then bring that strategic vision to life. What are some of the things from a team development perspective that you have that vision in your mind? How do you leverage the talent that you have, deep talent in your team and your community, to bring their team development to life?
I think that thinking strategically and long term is one of the hardest things to do. Most recently, in the past 12 months, it's been pretty wild to say the least. Because I'm like, I plan for like a year or more, and so then we went to planning for a few weeks, and so what we did during the pandemic was we looked at the situation. We're like, look, we can't play soccer. We're allowed to do these online sessions, and those were very taxing on the technical team, and they did a fabulous job there doing that, and they're still doing it, believe it or not. And what I said is, look, I'm going to start looking at things strategically, and I worked with the board, and then we did a lot of brainstorming with the full-time staff and the core staff, and it ended up that we came to a place where we were really excited, and it was bringing a lot of, pep to the team meetings. And we're in a place where, yeah, we're pretty down that we're not on the field, but we're so excited about the club and about where we're going. And people might be thinking, how can you be excited about soccer right now? Like it's not even going on. But I think that's because we've looked at it from a long-term perspective and are trying to focus on what's ahead and not what we can't control. What was the second part of your question?
Well, just about how team development, let me ask this to Shaheen, how can you add value to the team? I say that I see how you add value. It's very obvious how you add value. Sunshine, intelligence, warmth, commitment, loyalty. These are assets that anybody would love to have on their team. I see that. But what is your view of how you can help unite the community, build the team, encourage more females to play, encourage more youth boys to talk, like all of this? How can you contribute?
Again, a very good question. That's actually why I proposed the idea of starting the podcast with the club. So I originally was doing the podcast on the side, on my own, with one or two of my colleagues, just for fun, just out of passion. And And then when this thing happened, and as Jason said, like the core staff and the full-time staff, we were having meetings and we were talking, and I was thinking to myself, what can I do to keep the players engaged, to keep the parents, the community, the coaches, to bring everybody together. So I said, I can propose to do the podcast with the club for our community. So I threw the proposal to Jason and to Gareth at the time, and they were very supportive. And I decided to initially, we started with some of the coaches. We brought in the coaches, even though they couldn't go on the field. They were excited to come and talk just about football and what was going on, and talk about themselves. So it was very fun and engaging. And then as it started developing and settling a bit, we started to making it more formal, more educational, to also add a bit of more value to it, so that it can also teach to our players or to our listeners a little bit of what we have to offer as the staff or the people that come on. So this is one of the things that I contributed towards, and I'm very proud of it. But also just I'm a very passionate person. I was studying physics at one point in my life, and I literally took a U-turn, and I said, you know what, this is, growing up, I didn't have the chance. We couldn't afford to, I couldn't do what I wanted to do. So I can still coach. I'm passionate. I'm going to pursue. So I literally had to go start from the bottom, take community courses. I was the first license I took, I wasn't even a coach. I wasn't coaching anymore. So I literally went to a course with a bunch of people that were already coaching at different clubs. And I was just sitting there, and when they asked me, where do you coach? I said, nowhere. I'm just here because I want to be here and I want to learn. So just through my passion, I want to bring people together. I want to, whether it's male players, female players, bring them together and help them get better and also enjoy the game of football. So
I'm going to ask the same question of you, Mallory, but before I do that, I want to ask a question back to Shaheen. I actually want to make a comment, because this is what I hear and I see. There is nothing that can stand in your way when you are focused on a vision of your future self, and it's driven by the heart that pumps inside of you. And when you change some stories in your head, that will continue to unlock what makes you great, and it will help you soar. There are two stories that I hear that hold you back a little bit. Your story about not growing up with money, really, struggle builds the strength. Quite frankly, that was a gift. And every single kid that I coach that had challenges in their life had an opportunity to look at that, a choice in their head. Do you choose to look at it as a negative? Will it hold you back? Or do you choose to feel that fire to propel you forward? So that is a choice. Make that choice, move forward. And the second thing is, just about how in soccer, I'm going to take it away from Shaheen and I'm going to go up to a big, broad soccer community. My first VP role inside the board was in a club, and we had an ex-Premier League player that was our technical director. And I played varsity soccer, but when I shared that I played varsity soccer, he kind of patronizingly patted me on the head and said, Nancy, that's really nice. Can you fetch me a beer? I exaggerate. It's not really an exaggeration. That sometimes in soccer, we hold ourselves back because we are... Again, it's protecting. It's about how we present ourselves in a united way as a soccer community moving forward. Just because you play Premier League and I didn't, I only played this, doesn't make you better than me. And breaking down those barriers takes two people. It takes me, who's receiving that information, and it takes the person who is thinking that way. Both of us need to change your mindset. And, coming back to following your heart and making it a passion, and how committed and loyal you are to the game, and how soccer makes you feel joy. You feel joy. And what happens as a result is you radiate joy. I feel your joy. Your club feels your joy. Jason feels your joy. Mallory, everybody else that you affect, that you are changing lives because you made a decision to be in soccer instead of in physics. You're changing lives. How great is that?
I hope so.
So, Shaheen. All right, Mallory, how are you committed to the team development piece? Tell me that.
Well, there's two different things, and I know that we've talked about this in length, and you've been very useful in the way that, like, you've empowered me to think bigger picture as well as club specific. So I'll talk about like kind of the club specific type of things first. So in a team perspective, it's like, I feel like with the club, it's extremely important on the girls only side of things. And as a club, we've done an absolutely amazing job with girls only ball striking and Friday night development league for the girls and different things like that. So in a team perspective, it's like I like to be passionate, but also think of those who may not be necessarily our tier one players to build players that are going to continue with the game for the rest of their life. And that is something that I'm very passionate about. And I feel that sometimes it's lost because we want to be really competitive. So I think one of my strengths is actually kind of paying attention to those who may not be the higher level players. But in a broad perspective, like with the industry and everything along those lines, in a teamwork type of way, I feel that collaboration is the most important. And you've been very, very good for me in the way that you've empowered me to be braver on my, not only my delivery, but just kind of initiatives that I feel is important. So it sounds a little bit ambiguous, but overall in the teamwork, I just really hope that the industry can move forward and we can continue kind of in a united sense, just overall in a positive kind of advocate type of way.
Unity in the community. I'm going to say one thing. When you say, so you're very high in analytical and you're very high in action focus, which means you have this brilliant mind and it actually is able to bring things to life, which is absolutely unique. And when you say, I think, and you twist your face like that, really, that's downplaying your strengths. Your opportunity is to beat your chest, pull your shoulders back, stick your chin up, which releases serotonin. And this hormone of serotonin is your happy hormone. And I am proud of you. So take the
thank you. Yeah, and I think that like overall with the industry, I think there's a lot of difficult conversations that have to be made. So kind of my part in it is I'm looking forward to not necessarily assisting, but being included in those difficult conversations and like pushing forward and really making change in the industry.
Here's what I would say. Can we switch it from a difficult conversation to an inspirational conversation? And you guys are leading the way. That's what I see. I hear and see the talent in your club every single week. From Adrian to Christina, Fiona, Liz, Isla, an amazing level of talent. And you guys are changing the game. And then that whole Shaheen story where he has been enabled to do this. This podcast in itself is spectacular. Shaheen took initiative to build it, present it, and now he's executing it. That is brilliant. And that is like from a player pathway. It's not just about, stopping at 14 and going to the mall every day and eating McDonald's. It's about giving people in their player pathway opportunities, match, coach, admin, and then look at opportunities to share stories like Shaheen, where you have an opportunity to test different areas. Social media, I'm going to build the brand of our community. So good. Very good job. I am extremely proud of the work that this club is doing.
Thank you. Thanks, Nancy. Thank you for the kind words. That brings me actually to the next point I wanted to make. Just to go back a little bit, I wanted to ask you, what is it that you do, and why do you do it, and how did you get connected with Jason, and why did you decide to work with the coaches that you mentioned earlier within Toronto High Power Football Club? So just a little bit of background about yourself and what brought you to our club.
I'm going to share two things. First is a story, and the second is some data. When I was 16 years old, I read a book, and I was confused. I didn't know where I wanted to go in my life. And in the book, it had a psychometric evaluation at the back. That psychometric evaluation said I should be a coach. Well, I'm 50, so that was years ago, 16 years old. And I was like, a coach? There wasn't coaches. There were no female coaches. There wasn't even soccer for girls when I was growing up. There was one league, Scarborough United, that's it. My point is this: 5 years after I read that book, I was at the top of the World Juniors, and I was coaching the team for Alpine Ontario at the World Juniors. And I lifted my head, I looked around, there were 39 dudes and me. And at the end of the World Juniors, I was offered an opportunity to be the technical director for Alpine Ontario, or option B, to work at IMG in sport marketing. I chose option B because I couldn't see a pathway for myself, and it's about clarity of the pathway. And I went all the way up the ladder to the top of the ladder as an event and brand marketing and sales team leader. And at the top of the mountain, as I was leading a team of 37 people, I was diagnosed with cancer. The joke around that is I hadn't been to the doctor for 12 years. And as an executive of this organization, they send people to the doctor. And I was laughing. I ran 50K a week. I was 10% body fat, long flowing blonde hair. Why do I need to go to the doctor? It was at that pivotal moment in my life when they told me I was really sick that I needed to make a choice. And in my head, I made a choice. Well, I said I could worry about this, or I could look at this as an opportunity to learn. And how am I going to embrace this as a learning journey? And I started to share who I was because I had protected myself for so many years. My point is this. At the end of the journey, I fought for 2.5 years. I have no boobs. I went through 2 surgeries, chemo and radiation, etc. And at the end of the journey, after I took 6 days off, throughout 2.5 years, I continued to push myself to learn how to lead and be the best leader I could be, even though I was bald and puffy and I was in the middle of a chemo treatment. But at the end of it, I got kicked off the team. They told me I didn't fit. I'd never been kicked off the team before. It caused me to reevaluate. I asked myself what makes my heart sing. I wanted to help. I said, I'm going to help 100 people. And so I went back, did my master's. I got certified as a coach and a master coach in this program. And then I embarked on a whole new journey. So now I'm a master performance coach. The point is this. I will be this. I will be the coach of the coaches. I am the coach of the head coaches. That's where I fit. I coach Toronto FC coaches. I coach you guys. It's the space in the world that I fit, but it doesn't exist. So that brings me to my second point, Shaheen, that 64% of positions that are in existence now will not exist in 5 years. So I challenge us to think about what soccer could be, knowing what we know about the community that we live in and how incredibly powerful soccer is for us. And the profiles of soccer are beautiful profiles. And I do hockey and alpine skiing and soccer. And I'd say soccer beats every other sport. And I'll look at that data. I'll put stake in the ground on that one. So if 64% of the jobs that don't exist, I'm inventing new jobs. I'm creating my opportunity. So I really don't know exactly where I am going. And that's a beautiful thing. It's okay not to know. And I'm testing. And so when Jason and Eddie called me, I was like, I'm here. I am here to help you. Not 100% sure how or where, but then I get to work with people like Jason and Mallory and Liz, and I get to hear the richness of Adrian's story. And that's how I landed in this call with you. And aren't I lucky?
That's amazing. Jason, do you want to add anything to that? Nancy's work with the coaches and the value she brings into the team.
Well, I think it's a hard story to follow. That was pretty inspirational, Nancy. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm probably gonna, not that you get embarrassed from compliments, but I'm gonna, I guess, embarrass you a little bit more. And Nancy and I connect every week. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 35 minutes, and we just really talk about what's going on in our lives, what have we had successes with, and what are we intentionally doing this next week to make people's lives better, and what have we done this past week to make people's lives better. And we've talked so much about sharing stories, but sharing stories for me is the way that you connect with people, because you're sharing something that is people can relate to, and as soon as you can relate to someone, you're like, oh yeah, this I actually like this person, when previously you thought you had nothing in common. And that leads me to an interesting story, which I hope you don't mind me sharing, Shaheen. But when Shaheen came on the team, like, we were like, wow, this guy's, really smart, really intelligent, and he loves soccer. Like, we're like, this guy's a gem. So he starts working, and we obviously we went through COVID, and he was doing a different role, and he sent me something one day, and I was like, this Shaheen, he's not really, I don't think he's, what we quite thought we were getting. I just thought that to myself, and I didn't say it to anyone else. And then I kind of, basically, I misunderstood him, and it's as simple as that. And then I got on a call with him, and he was like, look, I wasn't this and this. And I was like, oh, and just because I hadn't taken the time to understand Shaheen and get to know him more and share with him, I kind of misread him. And it happens a lot, and it's something that I am consciously always doing now. So, like, sometimes you catch yourself making that judgment, and you've got to rein yourself back in. And so I think I've gone on a bit of a tangent there, but I'll probably just like to bring it back to some solidarity in saying that we all have values, right? And one of my values is being coachable. And I that's one of the best things about me. I will listen, and I will take advice from a board member, from a head coach, from whoever, a volunteer. And you know what? You don't always do what they say, but you have to take it in and process it, and then make a decision with that information. And I think we ask our players to be coachable, right? And then we go into the workplace, and somebody suggests something, and or ask somebody, and it's like, oh no, and we close off. No, we're not doing that. And you're like, well, we're all coaches, and if your player said that to you, you'd be like, well, they're not coachable, they're not on my team. And so I think we need to hold ourselves to higher standards, and cut with the excuses. And that's why I think I really like working with you, Nancy, and I think everybody else does, because what you do is you don't take any of the excuses. You're just like, don't make those excuses. Let's move on. And you do it in a really kind way, though. So it's great.
Kind. You're right. I would say feedback is a strength of mine, and I go straight because it is the most effective way, but I do it with my heart first. I'm going to actually come back to one thing, and I'm going to close the loop based on what Jason has just said. And this is one of the things that Mallory said at the very beginning. And I'm going to hold up your screen, your soccer philosophy. Can you see the soccer philosophy?
A little bit.
Yeah. I know that it's getting a little bit. In the middle of your soccer philosophy, you have connect, press, compact, and available. So you have defending, attacking. In that team identification. And in the middle, you have your logo. And what I would say is, in the middle of that should be communication. That all of your 4 pillars, unity in the community, you have team development, you have operational excellence, and you have building a pathway. Yeah. It's all centered on communication with the intent to connect. And that's what Mallory said at the beginning. And then I conclude with this, Jason. It's just about, and I asked Liz this, are you coaching your athletes the way you want to be coached, or the way they want to be coached? Because Liz is really high in detail. She's really good at detail, and I'm not good at detail. So, when I'm speaking with somebody, I have to be conscious of that. So are you coaching somebody the way you want to be coached, or the way they want to be coached? And Liz is very conscious about coaching people how they want to be coached. And to your point, Jason, it's about understanding each other. And Jesus, that's the most important. Easy. Break down the barriers, let people in, and communicate with the intent to connect. Has the journey in communication and learning about yourself, Mallory, and then learning how to share you in a positive, forward-moving way, has that been helpful in helping you understand how to connect with other people?
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things too, sometimes personally, I know like I'm adverse to kind of risk and I'm not very brave. So sometimes I'll communicate, but I won't necessarily, I'll kind of blurt it out, just kind of like not in a very, not necessarily not a thought out way. But I don't take into account that the person is actually listening or how to connect with the person to be able to be effective with my communication. So it's been very, very helpful to kind of go through everything because it not only boosted my confidence in my communication, but it just made me want to connect in different ways to be more effective with my communication and to be brave with the message and the communication that I'm delivering to basically anybody. So yes, it's been very helpful.
You've said brave like 5 times, which I'm so proud of you for. Like, pull your shoulders back, stick your chest out, chin in the air, people. Let's go. Help you model the way. So all of those little girls, there's 2.4 billion Zeds out there, and you are leading the way for other little girls to see what brave looks like and sounds like. How great is that?
Yeah, and I think like as a community too, like kind of going back to what you were saying about dreaming and like seeing a different future. It's like I think all of us in football just we have to be innovative and brave and advocate for what's best for the industry and just really dream and think of a place that all of us connect and we're collaborative and we move forward. And so I thought I would add that too.
Let me ask Shaheen, what is your future vision of soccer? What would you dream of soccer being to achieve its potential?
In general or within my community?
Well, I'd say, are they different?
I think one of my goals is to make a difference and create a footballing culture within my community, but also within the country, so that just the sport itself grows and just grows, becomes bigger than it is, becomes the #1 sport in Canada. And if I can contribute to that in a small way, whether it's coaching my OPDL team or coaching one of my grassroots teams, whatever it is, but also create a culture where players or parents or fans are loving the game and follow the game and are interested and talk about the game. And it's not just when they come to practice or to a game, but also when they're on their own time, and they become more and more exposed and passionate about the game. I think I'm happy, but yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. But
I would say that you have this energy of, you know where you want to go, but you're so high in support and affection that you're kind of downplaying where you know you can go. And here's the other thing. You want a little secret. You want to know his tell is that he's high in analytical, is he looks up and to the right. So when he thinks, he looks up into his brain, which means he's high in analytical, which means he's great in solving complex problems. My point is this: body language is part of language too. And very often it's just about understanding other people and leaning in and with the intent of understanding who you are. And I would say this in my final comments: I am honored to be a contributing member of your team right now. And all I'm doing is sharing with you what makes you great. How Shaheen is an incredible top performer because he's curious, he's kind, he's high in analytical, and he's driven to get the job done and get the job done of a level up here. How Mallory cares, how articulate she is, how incredibly motivating she is for all those little girls, and how what Jason said and his strengths, he doesn't stay stuck. That is a huge asset. He doesn't stay stuck. He's 2% reduced flexibility. That is a huge strength. And when he speaks, he adds value. And when he is there, you know he cares. When I posted a little ditty about him, I just posted his picture on what you guys are doing. It got 15,000 views. So many people. Jason's a good mate. That is so brilliant. So I'm very proud of the work that you are doing, all of you.
Jason, is there anything you want to add to slowly wrap up the conversation?
Not really. I think we've shared a lot of stories, and I think we've said quite a lot. So I guess I just want to thank everyone for their time. Thank Nancy for coming on and for working with us, and Mallory for sharing, and to our host Shaheen, thank you so much. This has brought so much value to the club, and it's a great way for us to connect with people. Going back to the whole focus on team development is to connect, right? And so you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope more coaches, including myself, get the opportunity to work with Nancy. Nancy, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for making the time to be on the podcast. Mallory, yourself, thanks a lot for being here. And Jason, all of you guys, really, really appreciate it. And I look forward to maybe doing it again in the future. So,
all right, you guys, see you later. Have an amazing weekend.
So that's it for today. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, share, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Take care.